Somebody told you that you're a bad gardener. Maybe it was your neighbor with the perfect rose bed. Maybe it was your mother-in-law. Maybe it was just the dead stick in a pot on your porch that used to be a plant. Here's what none of them told you. You're not bad at gardening. You were just handed the wrong plants. Every single perennial that dies on you was bred to look good in a plastic pot under fluorescent store lighting for exactly 6 weeks, not to survive in your actual yard for 6 years. The plants I'm showing you today were tested for the opposite thing. Some of them have gone 15, 20, even 25 years in the same spot with zero care, and they're still standing. If you've ever felt guilty walking past an overgrown flower bed instead of kneeling down to fix it, stop. You don't need more discipline. You need 7 specific names, and I'm about to give them to you. Every plant on this list passed the same test. Independent, multi-year trials, not a 5-star review on a garden center website. And here's the part that matters for you this week specifically. August is one of only 2 windows all year when planting a perennial gives it the best chance at surviving winter with zero babysitting from you. The soil is still warm. The worst heat is starting to break. Stick with me, because the plant at position 1 isn't just low maintenance. It's the one plant in my own yard I have never once touched since the day I put it in the ground. Low maintenance on a plant tag means almost nothing. Any grower can print that phrase. Since 1990, though, the Perennial Plant Association has run an actual process. Horticulturists nationwide nominate cultivars, then vote based on multi-season performance, not appearance or sales. One winner a year, and it has to prove itself across wildly different climates first. The Mount Cuba Center in Delaware runs something even more brutal. Multi-year field trials, where entire plant families are grown side by side, deliberately underwatered, deliberately left unfed, then ranked by which ones actually survive. None of that research reaches the plastic tag at your local big box store. What shows up there is whatever a wholesale grower can propagate fastest and ship cheapest, which is exactly why the same tired stock keeps rotating through the discount rack every July, while almost nobody plants the 7 cultivars below, even though every one of them already won. Number 7 is catmint, Nepeta Walker's Low. Don't let the name fool you. It grows more like a soft mounding cloud than anything low. Named Perennial Plant of the Year back in 2007, it can actually reach 2 to 3 feet in most climates. First introduced it, and it just stuck. It blooms lavender blue from May through frost, with one rough haircut in July. Deer and rabbits ignore it, and it thrives in poor, dry soil that would kill almost anything else nearby. Mini payoff. Bees don't just visit Walker's Low, they swarm it. Pollinator work happening all season while it looks like you fussed over it, when you did nothing at all. Number 6 almost never gets planted in August, and that's a mistake. Hylotelephium Autumn Joy, the old school name is Sedum Autumn Joy, is doing its best work right now. The broccoli-like flower heads are just turning from pale green to dusty pink, and by October, they'll be deep rust red, standing through frost and snow, feeding late-season bees when almost nothing else has anything left to offer. It needs no water once established, no fertilizer ever, and actually flops if you're too generous with either. Plant it in full sun, average or poor soil, and walk away. 20 years from now, it's the same clump, just wider. 5 months of non-stop bloom, and you never deadhead once. That's hardy Geranium Roseanne, number 5, named Perennial Plant of the Year in 2008, and still one of the most recommended perennials in the country, even though most home gardeners have never heard the name. It spreads as a soft, low carpet, never crowds its neighbors, never needs staking, and blooms from May clear through the first hard frost. Water it through its first summer, and after that it's simply there, every year, without you doing anything at all. Most of you have never planted number 4 either, and that's the point. Amsonia hubrichtii, Blue Star, native to the Ouachita Mountains of Arkansas, was named Perennial Plant of the Year in 2011. It covers itself in soft, sky blue, star-shaped flowers in late spring. And here's the mini payoff. In October, the entire plant turns solid gold. A second performance from the same clump. No extra planting required. Deer ignore it. It needs no water after year 1, and it holds its shape, unstaked and undivided, for 2 decades or more. Ask any gardener who grew phlox in the early 2000s what ugly phlox means and they'll wince. Brown stems, mildew-crusted leaves by August. Number 3 fixes that. Garden Phlox Gina, named Perennial Plant of the Year in 2024. The most mildew-resistant phlox Mount Cuba Center has ever recorded in its trials. It stays clean all season, produces lavender-pink flower clusters, and drew more butterflies in testing than any other phlox tried. Plant it in full sun, average soil, and divide the clump every 3 to 5 years once it thickens. The only maintenance this one will ever ask you for. Number 2 is the plant you plant exactly once. Baptisia australis, blue false indigo, was named Perennial Plant of the Year in 2010, and it develops a taproot that drives straight down, making the mature plant almost untouchable by drought, heat, deer, or fungal disease. The blue flower spires in late May look almost like lupines, except Baptisia doesn't fade after 2 or 3 seasons. The black seed pods rattle in the fall wind and feed goldfinches through winter. One warning: that taproot despises being moved once established, so choose the spot carefully. After that, it stays for a quarter century, asking for nothing. And here's number 1, the plant I've never once touched since the day I planted it. Hosta Sum and Substance has anchored the same shaded, north-facing corner of my yard for over 15 years. No division, no replanting, no landscaper. It was named Hosta of the Year by the American Hosta Growers Association back in 2004, and it's outperformed nearly everything since. Its leaves are noticeably thicker than an ordinary hosta's, which is exactly why the slugs that turn most hostas into lace by August can't chew through this one. Plant it in dappled morning shade. Give it 4 feet of clear space. Water it through its first summer, then genuinely walk away. By year 3, it's the size of a small car. And right now, late summer, is peak hosta planting season. So if you only plant one thing from this list in August, this is the one. So why did it take you this long to hear any of these 7 names? It's not a conspiracy. It's simpler and more frustrating than that. Garden center chains place orders years ahead, with wholesale growers optimizing for one thing: how fast a plant can be propagated and shipped, not how long it survives in your yard. A patented cultivar with a flashy tag gets a marketing budget. A plant that only earned its reputation because an independent trial measured mildew resistance and drought survival over 5 straight years gets nothing. No ad spend, no shelf space. Nobody decided to keep you guessing. It's a supply chain built for turnover, not for a bed that still looks the same 20 years from now. So the choice in front of you is smaller than it feels. Keep grabbing whatever's stacked at the front of the store, or walk in and ask for these 7 names directly. Most nurseries can special order what isn't on the pallet, if you actually ask. You're not too lazy to garden. You just haven't planted the right thing yet. Go look at whatever died in your yard last year, and put one of these 7 in its place instead. Then don't touch it again, and let it outlive the guilt.